benefit cuts. Plus, did Putin win or lose with the Olympics? And the crisis in Venezuela. Those are the topics today for our agenda panel. Viviana is the founder and editor-in-chief of the WiseLatinaClub.com. Bill Scher is the executive editor of LiberalOasis.com and senior writer at Campaign for America's Future. And Sabrina Siddiqui is a politics reporter at the Huffington Post. Thanks for being with us, all of you.
Thank you.
Great to be here, Betty.
Absolutely. Sabrina, let's start with you. The White House now confirms that President Obama's 2015 budget blueprint will no longer contain what had been really a central component of his long-term debt reduction strategy. In years past, he had offered to trim cost of living increases in Social Security and other benefit programs. In fact, House Speaker John Boehner's response, I want you to take a look at it. He says, this reaffirms what has become all too apparent. The president has no interest in doing anything, even modest, to address our looming debt crisis. So, Sabrina, you see a political motive behind the president's decision?
Well, I think it's a combination of a political motive and also the fact that there isn't a need for the president to include change CPI in his budget this year. Last year, he included it in the context of a grand bargain. It was a partial relief to sequestration and conditional upon Republicans embracing new tax revenues. We know Republicans haven't budged on taxes, and the grand bargain is widely regarded as dead. In addition to that, deficits have fallen sharply, and the budget deal that was passed by Congress in December did offer modest relief to sequestration. So there's really no need for the president to include change CPI in his budget this year, much less an election year where it could have posed a political problem for Democrats.
Bill, let me bring you in here because the White House says the president will also seek $56 billion in new spending in the next fiscal year. So does that give Republicans some new ammunition, if you will, in this midterm election year?
I don't think so. I think people are not in austerity-minded mode. I think they want these budget dramas to end, and they are going to end. We've had this budget cap already, and they want to see what we can invest to grow our country's future. How can we invest in our infrastructure? How can we invest in our children? We don't want to just see cut, cut, cut. You'll notice Republicans don't actually specify what they do want to cut because that's very politically dangerous. What the president did before was make an offer to pair these Social Security cuts with other tax revenue increases on the wealthy. Republicans rejected that offer. The left is happy Obama's pulling it off the table, and Obama could say, I was willing to compromise and you were not. So I don't see how this is any kind of political benefit to the Republicans.
All right, let's turn this conversation now to Putin and the Olympics. Viviana, he was given really a big showcase here, and he's been successful. He's enforced security at these games, and as the games wind down, does Putin come out a winner in this or not?
Well, certainly with all of the international criticism and the spotlight, not just on the Olympics and all of the different moving parts there, as well as what's happening in the Ukraine, this is what's going to, this is what Vladimir Putin is going to be judged on. But interestingly as well, there's somebody else who's being judged, and that is President Obama's reaction. We have conservatives that have come out and said this is exactly what we've been talking about, the president leading from behind and looking very weak. I think one thing to keep in mind, though, is that remember that the president, as he is, I hope, burning down the telephone lines, trying to build coalitions, for example, with Germany, with Great Britain, with Brazil, and with Mexico as far as the Venezuela situation is concerned. I think that we have to give the president that latitude because he is not just evaluating the situations, the hotspots in the Ukraine or Venezuela, but also all of the other factors. For example, alienating Russia. What does that do for the situation in Syria? How about Iran's nuclear enrichment programs? These are the kind of things the president and the White House are surely weighing.
Yeah, the narrative has gotten pretty heavy around these games, Bill, but I want to bring us back to Putin and how he feels about these games as they wind down. Well, of course, aside from the Russian men's hockey team disaster, which I know he was not happy about.
Well, I think this is a big loss for Putin. This was his show. He hustled to get these games. He wanted to show that Russia was back on the world stage, back and better than ever, ready to be on par with America. And what have we seen? We have bloodshed in the Ukraine that he instigated because he would not let that country turn economically towards Europe and get out of Russia's orbit. We see his police horsewhip the Pussy Riot protesters, showing that he is not off. He had some sort of symbolic gestures that prove that he was for free speech. That is proven incorrect. And the games themselves are a $50 billion festival of graft, which is not going to help attract foreign investment, doesn't help Putin look strong to his own people. I got to say, this is a big loss to Putin overall.
Yeah, Sabrina, when the world's media leaves Russia and the spotlight is off of it, should we really be concerned that Putin might actually take stronger action regarding the crisis in Ukraine? I mean, he's already accusing the U.S. of meddling in what he considers to be his backyard.
Well, I think that's part of why you've seen a very strong reaction from the U.S. and the president directly confronted Putin in his remarks on Ukraine the other day. He said that they disagree on the concept of basic freedoms for people, of course, who are protesting in Ukraine. And I think that that's why you also see lawmakers on both sides of the aisle calling on President Obama to kind of get out ahead and impose sanctions, which he can do using his own executive authority. I know that the State Department, in order to send a message, has placed a visa ban on 20 Ukrainian officials considered to have played a role in the crackdown. And Senators Chris Murphy and John McCain are also working on a sanctions bill. That, of course, would be picked up when Congress comes back from recess next week. And I think if there isn't an end to the violence, then you could very well see either the White House or Congress take action on sanctions to send a message not just to Yanukovych, but also to Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, it is a very volatile situation watching play out. The Wise Latina Club's Viviana Hurtado, Bill Scher of Liberal Oasis, and the Huffington Post's Sabrina Siddiqui. All of you, thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And still ahead, New York State makes a major overhaul to the way it treats prisoners, and actually several states could follow. Plus,